Welcome everyone to the Sunday Staff Debrief, where every week we chat about various diving topics. I'm your host Nicole, and as always, joined by our panel, Juicy and Rich. And this week, our special guest was born and raised in Utila, a UDC boat captain for 5 years, Mr. Bradford Darris, aka Captain Chucksy. Welcome, Chucksy.
Thank you for having me. Good to be here.
Absolutely. So excited to have you.
Before we get started, Chucksy, happy belated birthday. Your birthday yesterday. We just want to say happy birthday from all the UDC family to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
So, Chucksy, can you tell us a little bit about the origin story of you and how you became a UDC captain?
Well, it's a long story, but
We've got time.
I'll break it down the best way I can, best of my memory. But from a kid, from children, we always in the bay with these paddling dories, out fishing, swimming, diving in the bay. About 1993, I began working with Echo Marine. It was Gunter's dive shop at the time. In 95, went on to work with Paradise. I've spent about five years with Paradise Divers. After that, I moved off to the States in about 2003, I think it was. Working in the Gulf of Mexico on tugboat as a deckhand, getting some sea time. Did that for 2 years. When I came back home in 2005, then went to the International Maritime School in Puerto Cortes, Honduras, actually in Omoa, but it's part of Puerto Cortes. And I did my course, passed the test, and got my international captain's license. And ever since, I've been off and on, leaving the country, working. My first job, like I said, was in the US, Gulf of Mexico. Then I went to Dubai, Qatar, to India. I've been to Africa, I've been to Belize, Panama, Trinidad and Tobago, just to mention a few. But it's been a good journey and good experience, and came back home. And I was asked, UDC was needing some captains, and I was asked to fill in for a while. I said, yeah, I'll fill in for a little while. And well, it ended up being 5 years, and during that time I got to meet a lot of wonderful people, make a lot of good friends here at UDC, and a lot of wonderful memories with different people, the wildlife, it's been awesome, it's been amazing.
Amazing.
Man, listen to that list, you've done more traveling than me. I get touted as the one who's been around the world more, and you've been to more places than I have. That's incredible.
Yeah, I've been to your country too.
Well, there you go, huh?
Been to Britain passing through anyway.
You can keep it, I'm fine without it.
Too cold for me.
Me too.
Whoever's far can stay.
Well, Rich, you showed up to UDC right around the tail end of Chucksy's time here. What was some of your first impressions of him?
I think his smile was the first thing I remember from Chucksy. As we've joked about, I've travelled and worked around the world, and we've often had boat captains who are clearly part of the team, but at UDC that's beyond something I've ever experienced before. They're not just part of the team, they're part of the family, all of the captains. And Chucksy was a huge part of that when I first arrived. I arrived as a student, not necessarily as an employee, and he was very welcoming. He knew my name before I knew his. Whenever you turn up on the boat, he was there smiling, welcome, it's going to be a good day, and all this sort of thing. And that's something that both Chucksy and all of the captains do here at UDC. It's a very welcoming environment that we have.
And Juicy, you've worked very closely with Chucksy for many years here at UDC. You must have some very memorable experiences because of him and with him. Please share with us.
Absolutely. It was always a pleasure to work with Chucksy. As Rich mentioned, his attitude and his gregarious nature is contagious, and everyone enjoys being around Chucks. Two of the highlights things I remember that really transcended the dive shop was Chucksy's a minister here locally, which a lot of people don't know. And he did some vow renewals for different customers that we had. There was one couple that did their dive masters back in the early days that I worked here back in 2011, and they came back 2017, I think 2016, and he renewed their vows up on the top dock. It was quite the spectacle, a lot of fun, really, really interesting time. And then we had another couple who renewed their vows out on the boat, and Chucks was the minister for that. So that was one thing that kind of really strikes my memory. That was really fun, and everyone really enjoyed it. One specific story that helped me the most, not to mention all the countless whale sharks and dolphins and things that Chucksy finds, and just working with him was always, I learned so much from him on the boats in general. One time I was teaching a lionfish instructor course, and one of the requirements is that they have to shoot a lionfish. And me and this individual, we were out doing some dives. I think he might have missed 1 or 2 lionfish, but it was more that we just were getting unlucky and not really seeing any lionfish on the dives. So Chucksy, I said to him, Chucks, listen, this guy's leaving. I really got to find lionfish, otherwise he's not going to be able to get certified. So we go around to Blackish Point, dive site on the north side, one of my favorite sites, and Chucksy pulls up. He's kind of looking at the shore a little bit, and he's gauging where he is. He's looking around, okay, here, there. He pulls up to a spot. He said, all right, Juice, get in here and go down the wall right here. There's going to be a crack in the wall. Just off that crack, there's a stovepipe sponge, and there's going to be like 5, 6 lionfish right there. And I thought to myself, I've known Chucksy for 5, 6 years, but I've not seen him go diving. I know he's dived a countless amount of times around the island, but he had not been diving in that location in quite some time. And when I got in the water, I dropped down to that spot. There was the stovepipe sponge that he had talked about. There was the crack, and I think there was maybe 5 or 6 more lionfish than he had told me there would be. And that gentleman dropped down, got his requirements for the course, and I was like, yeah, Chucksy, you're the man. And I was just super impressed with his knowledge of not only above the water but below the water. And that's something I think that we tell new instructors when they're going to a new location, or even new instructors here, is leverage the knowledge and the experience that captains have, and they know so much about what's going on under the water with the topography and the dive sites and all of the local area. And that's something that new instructors, or even experienced instructors, when you go to a new location, should really leverage and lean into, is the experience that people like Chucksy have.
And Chucksy, what type of formal training do you need to become a boat captain in Honduras?
Like I said, you do your STCW. I went to Puerto Cortes and I did my STCW. Then I left the country, worked as a deckhand. I literally worked my way up. You know, I was working around Utila as a boat captain, going to Rotan, going to Ceiba. I didn't have a license in those days, but I got the experience. I actually did my Honduran captain license. Back then there was no school around, you know, and the Bay Islanders, especially, they're known worldwide for their seamanship. Like I said, since we were born, our parents and family members take us, and because we were surrounded by water. So I got my Honduran captain license. After that, went and got my STCW, went off working in the U.S., in the Gulf of Mexico, working as a deckhand for a couple of years, working my way up. Started as an ordinary seaman, got an AB license, came back, went back to school in 2005, did my advanced STCW work and boat handling, almost similar to the STC, as the IYT course. You have to prove that you can handle the boat, charting, you know, and then you do a final exam. So it's mostly sea time, you know, and experience, and you have to show your discharges in your seaman book, and then you bike it up by the test and everything.
So do you know about how many years it took you to reach that point? When you actually started official training?
Okay, in 03, 05, 2 years, but like I said, that was about 10 years already working around here throughout Honduras, Ceiba, Rotan, Utila, as a boat captain on these dive boats, taking divers over to Rotan or going to La Ceiba to pick up freight and that sort of stuff. But it was about 3 years building up some sea time out of the country and learning more, because I was just watching what other captains were doing and asking questions, and so I said, let me do it, teach me, and that's how I got into it. And
of course,
I already had the experience. I was already familiar with the boat. I just had to learn about the charting and that, and by watching and asking questions. And I came home, and like I said, I'd done the club courses. Within 3 years, I was already certified then for international.
Cool, very cool. And Rich, you've had some boating experience as well,
Yeah.
correct? Tell us about that.
Yeah, I despite growing up in the middle of the UK, I also grew up around boats. My grandfather had a sailing yacht, and I was taught to sail from a very young age. Sailed extensively around the East Coast. When I went to university, had the opportunity to do some powerboat courses. IYA level 2, I think I reached in the end, and also the Ocean Master theoretical side of things, which is, like Chucksy said, is all to do with chart work and recognition of lights and what it all means, all that sort of stuff. I didn't have the time to be on the sea, the same as Chucksy did. I grew up on an island, but a much bigger one. But generally the whole time I was obsessed with the water. If I wasn't on a boat, I was off the back of it on a board or on one with a sail on it and things like that. So I spent a lot of time on the water, and perhaps it's something I should have done a bit more in my career. Having worked around the world, it was something that I've noticed a lot of places really look for in instructors, is somebody who can handle boats, not necessarily full boat captains, but can handle boats and can work on boats and stuff like that. We all do, you and I work and every day, and you do as well, on boats, pulling them in and the fenders and the things like that. So it's something perhaps I should have spent a bit more time doing in my earlier career. Yeah.
And Juicy, in all your experience within the dive industry, do you have any experience on boats specifically?
Yeah, of course, we spend a lot of time on boats. I grew up in a place where most of the boats I was on was canoes on lakes and a couple hours from the ocean. But ever since I've been in the dive industry, I've spent a lot of time on boats. When I worked in Fiji, I had to drive a lot of the boats more often than in other locations I've worked. So that gave me a lot of experience, really learning how to handle boats a lot better than motorboats, a lot better than I had in any time in the past. I worked on a private super yacht during my time in diving in 2015. So I had done my STCW, like Chucksy mentioned earlier, and IYT Mega Yacht Crew Course, things like that. So I have a brief period of working in the yachting industry, and I've always enjoyed boats. It's one of my favorite things about being in Utila. When I worked in Mexico and worked as a cave diving guide, one of the things I enjoyed the least was driving down a highway to go to work. And so being on a boat is something that I have always loved, and it's just so much fun to be out there and be cruising through the water and the sights you see and the animals you interact with. So yeah, no formal training, but Anton, our colleague, and I are headed to Phoenix next month to train for the IYT Small Powerboat and Ribmaster course, which we offer here at UDC. Chucksy used to be one of the instructors that taught that course, and since he's moved on and a few other people have moved on, we need to train up some new instructors. And so myself and Anton are going to go do that. I'm looking forward to it.
Cool. And Chucksy, you used to be one of the IYT instructors here at UDC. What does that program entail here?
Well, I stress, first of all, safety. Safety, safety, safety. I first start with an introduction of the boat with all the safety equipment on board, all the fire extinguishers, life preservers, life rings. Then we move on to give them familiarization with the mechanical part, the motor, what to check every morning, your oil, and so on and so forth, your lights at night, those sort of things, and boat handling. Also, we go into a bit of charting, just to give them some knowledge into the charting for navigation with the buoy system and all that, basically the rules of the road, so it's a very good course for anybody. I recommend it for anybody to take. It's adds a star onto your curriculum.
And Chucksy, one of the things that people get to do on the IYT is go out with the captains and actually gain experience driving, and that's one of the things that a lot of these organizations around the world or captain's license require is sea time.
They get a hand-on experience in different types of weather, so it's like I said, it's a very good course. You get a hand, because I'm not a person to learn by telling me. Give it to me, let me do it, and that's how I learn. And that's how I learned.
Likewise.
I didn't go to school to learn it. My uncle said, grab this and do this, and that's the same way I teach other people. Let them relax. Just be aware of your surroundings. Safety, like I said, is very important. look out for the divers when you're approaching the buoy. Sometimes some of the dive shops put the divers down and they go somewhere else and there's no flag and somebody may be coming out, so you have to keep your eye out for bubbles. So safety is number one. And it's a beautiful program here at UDC. It's a hands-on experience driving. You drive us for 30 days as much as you want.
Awareness is a critical attribute for all instructors and for all boat captains as well.
Now, Chucksy, do you have any advice for any of the younger generation that is looking to become boat captains?
Always be safety-minded, put safety first, because you have the responsibility of people's lives in your hand. The boat, you have to keep safety in mind. Also work very hard. Also be responsible. Why I say be responsible to show up to work. A lot of younger guys want to go party and not show up to work. I party, but I showed up to work.
Now, Chucksy, when it comes to spotting the whale sharks and the dolphins, which is the captain's job, do you have any advice on that?
A magician never reveals a secret. But we do look for birds. We look for the tuna, the boils of tuna. And there's all the boat captains, we have a good relationship, or we did back then. I'm sure they still do today. Anybody finds anything, they raid you up, the other guy, here, come on here. And we just pass the word along to help everybody out. That way everybody can have experience that with the whale shark, the dolphins, sperm whales, pilot whales, and also the fake killer whales. Yeah.
And when it comes to the divers who actually get to jump in with these animals, do you have any advice for them?
Well, this is what I tell them on my boat. Get your head in the water, whale sharks don't fly.
That's the best advice I've heard all week. Thank you, everyone, for joining this week's episode of the Sunday Staff Debrief. Make sure you join us next week for another really interesting topic. And thank you, as always, to our panel. And a very special thank you to Captain Chucksy. Remember to help us grow our channel by...
Like the video.
Subscribe to the channel.
And leave a comment below.
See you all next week.
Oh my